Hi everyone, I'm Jonas Martin, and I'm here to give a speech on steroids in baseball and how I think that it should be totally legalized and totally straight. So if any of you guys are baseball fans as well, you would know that in the last about 3 decades that baseball it's undergone a change that's pretty much never seen before. There's always different eras of baseball, but it started in about the beginning of the 90s, sorry. And it's lasted until the mid 2000s. That's just the offensive numbers were off the hook. They were just out there. They were big home runs, big fan interest. Attendance was as big as it has been in relation to the population. So and obviously the interest it was skyrocketing during that time. There's the home run chase between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire brought so many more fans into the game. And but since then, since we cracked down on steroids in the last like 5-10 years, the offense has just died down. It's pitching dominant. There's not as many, the fan attendance is staying the same, although the population is growing, so there's no growth in population really, in attendance numbers. And this is just, the fans aren't showing up. The fans are losing to NFL, to basketball, to other sports that they figure is more action orientated since pitching is dominating. So some say that steroids ruin the game from the ethical standpoint. If everyone's taking drugs and they're all juiced up and they're not, are they even human anymore? Are they even, what about the person that doesn't want to take these drugs? Does he have an unfair advantage? And the statistics in baseball are a huge thing for fans. They love, you can go back to the early 1900s and relate those statistics to statistics today, and the numbers actually mean something. In other sports, they don't mean too much because there's been so many changes in the sport that the numbers are different. So people that are hardcore fans are saying that, how can we make these legal? Because those old people the old players weren't able to have access to these designer drugs. So that would unbalance the numbers in a certain way. And so I'm here to prove that if we were to legalize steroids, if Major League Baseball at least were to legalize steroids, it would make the game better, give the fans what they want, and it would even make it safer when it comes down to it. And so, do steroids really ruin the bodies and the sanctity of the game, or did the high offense bring more fans, competition, and interest to the sport? So where can we find a good balance there? So the current state of baseball, obviously, the fans, we've determined that the fans, because of the attendance numbers, they want the higher offensive numbers. They want to see home runs hit out of the ball. They don't want to see a 2-0 game every day. But then, like I said, the arguments are that they're unsafe, they taint the game, and the sacred numbers of baseball are being destroyed, some say. But I think it's time for a change to stay relevant, to stay with the NFL. The NFL is making changes for their offense. I mean, there's basically no defense anymore in the NFL. You just throw the ball up, and fans love it. More fans are attending. Everyone here probably watches football over baseball. I'm a big baseball fan. I like football too, but yeah. So according to the Ballparks of Baseball website, the people there, they say that, like I said before, the average of the fan attendance went from about 50 to 60 million a year in the 90s during the steroid era. Right before the steroid era, it was about 50 to 60 million a year, and then during those offensive numbers, those crazy offensively driven numbers, it went to 70, 75 million. So that's a pretty huge boost, and that obviously proves that fans want to see that. So why not give the fans what they want to see if you want to attract more attention to the game, right? Why not bring that? So that proves that point. Because since then, since obviously we were cracking down on steroids and there's all these testing going on, and everyone knows about it now, so everyone's looking out for it. Since then, the population has stayed at 70 to 75 million a year. So it hasn't grown even though population is growing. So there's no growth, like I said before. But the steroids harm the players. Not if we were to make them legal, I believe, because right now they're forced to go to different countries with less regulations to get the steroids. They're forced to do it on the black market with shady people, that are giving them drugs that aren't tested. And if we had them legal, they'd be, like alcohol and everything else that's legal, that it's regulated. It's a safe environment. Our doctors are working to make it better and safer, and to make the drugs better, to make the players better. So Chris Smith writes in Forbes magazine that athletes have too much at stake and will do steroids regardless if they're legal or not. So, they're doing it anyways. So we might as well put it in a legalized area and have everyone be on the same playing field. So if more fans will watch, and the steroids making it legal will make them actually safer. What is holding us back from making this legal? And this goes back to another point that I said before. It's the old timers in baseball, and I admit that I'm kind of one of those too. I like the numbers. I like the sanctity of the game. I don't want everyone just to be a big hulking brute that hits home runs. Like there's different positions. Some people want to bunt. There's speed. There's fielding. There's lots of aspects in the game, not just hitting home runs. But anyone that knows baseball, anyone that's a baseball fan knows that there has been different eras of baseball. In the 20s, in the 20s is actually high offensive too. There's Babe Ruth. He was hitting more home runs than teams were hitting home runs than entire teams. So and then there was like Mickey Mantle in the 40s and Lou Gehrig and those murderers row of the Yankees, who were also putting up offensive numbers. But after that, it was the dead ball era. The pitcher's mound was higher than it is now, which gave the pitching a huge advantage. So there was a dead ball era. Everyone knows the different eras of baseball. There's a steroid era, which we're talking about here. But this can be the pro-steroid era, where it's just actually, it's everyone will be on the drug that wants to, and it will be safe and legal, and and this will be the next era on baseball. So there's eras. You can compare the different era numbers together, and it makes baseball. It makes the numbers. You put them in their own eras, then it's not tainting the game as much. So J.C. Bradbury writes in the New York Times, if we're talking about ruining the game, J.C. Bradbury writes in the New York Times that other factors have way more ruined the game, the competitiveness of the game, by adding so many teams. Before, there was like 15 teams 50 years ago. Now there's 32 teams. There's full rosters of the teams. So there's a lot of players that maybe like 50 years ago wouldn't be in the major leagues. They wouldn't be able to make it. Since there's more teams, there's more places now for them to be. And that has watered down the game, I think, way more than steroids has ever have. And there's other, J.C. Bradbury also writes about other things that have ruined the game far more than steroids that no one ever talks about. So steroids have worked the game, sure, a little bit, but other factors have too, like I'm saying. And so I think those factors have influenced it more. So to wrap things up, one thing is for certain, that interest is dying, and we got to give the fans what they want. Every company, every business model appeals to a customer, to a fan. And so if the fans want it, obviously, by the attendance numbers, if it will be safer, and if it won't ruin the old members of the game, then why not make it legal? So I think I've stated my case there. Does anyone have any questions? You right there.
Thanks. So with like all the social medias and stuff like that, when you see drugs, you think, oh, that's bad. Do you think that legalizing steroids will actually make people go to the games more, or will it give an image in their head like, it's bad, I shouldn't go, and support
I think some people, like I said, some people might be anti-steroid and anti-drug. A lot of people probably are, but like I said, making it legal, it's legal in other sports, it's legal in other countries, it makes it safer to make it legal, and sure, you will have people that won't attend, that'll boycott because they don't want to support drug users or whatever, but I think the way our society is going, it's more going towards my side of, they're going to use it anyways, why not make it legal, and why not make it fair for everyone? So, another question.
Yes, I have a question for you. So I just wanted your personal opinion as being a baseball fan.
Mm-hmm.
You stated that, some of the greats have had high statistics, and back then,
mm-hmm.
when baseball was started, there weren't any drugs. I personally am an anti-drug.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to see if you could sell me a little more on why you believe steroids would actually enhance their capabilities.
Well, and that's a tricky subject. That's something that I've always argued too. How much does it really help? But it obviously does, because they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't. But it's because what was I going to say? Okay. Yes, I agree with what you're saying about that they have put up numbers like that without the steroids, but it's obvious if you look at the numbers from 90 to 2000, they were blown out of proportion. More people were Babe Ruth. There was only one Babe Ruth then. There was like 5 or 6 Babe Ruths, or even like 10 Babe Ruths every year here. So I agree with you that you can't just take away steroids and be a great baseball player. There's so many different factors. But it
Thank
definitely, it helps more with your recovery, but so the next day you don't feel as sore. It's more like recovery issues. That's what steroids do. They don't just like make you hit like home runs. It's about recovery because you do so much training and work as a player. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And so I'm handed out some petitions that we can sign and then turn it to MLB, and we can let them know if the fans want it legal.